When I first heard about the attack, I was actually out of the city. My wife called. She was already at work, and she said, do you know? And I ran to the TV, saw that one of the towers was on fire. At that point, a little after that, the second plane hit. And I knew at that point the world had changed.
A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Though my goal at that point was to get downtown and see what was going on, get to what became known as Ground Zero. What I discovered, as well as the rest of the press, was that we were going to be denied access to the site. Giuliani had decided no one was going to come in. He was actually arresting the press, confiscating cameras, confiscating equipment, press passes. A number of my colleagues actually ended up in jail for several days. This, to me, was a great assault on freedom of the press, particularly to an issue as important and an event that was as important as what was going on. That night, I took advantage of the darkness, the chaos, and I snuck in so I could see what was going on. I wanted to see the lay of the land. I needed to see what the actual destruction was, what was going on, and it gave me a great sense of where I needed to be, particularly when the light came back up and I could photograph again. The photographs serve as documents. They bear witness to the times, to what has happened. And I think at this moment in our history where the news is vilified, where fake news is propagated and pushed, and people are seeking information and struggling to know what is real and what is not real, their importance is ever greater. Ever greater in that without truthful, factual content, how do we make our decisions? In many respects, a photograph serves as a catalyst for change. It serves as the vehicle which starts the action which leads to the future. I spent the next 5 days photographing throughout the area, but by Friday, I was just too exhausted. I needed to get out. I decided to leave and go back home. On Sunday, I returned to the city. And at that point, I had heard that the Cathedral for St. John the Divine was doing a special service, and I decided to go up and see what was going on. When I arrived at the cathedral, people were very, very quiet. They were staying to themselves. The mood was extremely somber. They were very much lost in their own thoughts. There was a malaise that fell upon everything. You could feel it. It was something you could touch. And I remember when the ceremony started, it started with the altar boys walking down the aisle with incense and the smoke coming up from the incense. And for that moment, I was like, oh, more smoke, no more smoke. We had been living in smoke for the last couple of days. We were covered in ash. It just reinforced the terrible feelings that I found and felt when I was at Ground Zero. But at that very moment, the choir burst into sound, and then that sound seemed to reach above the smoke and into the vault of the cathedral, and things changed. You could see it in the eyes of the people who were there. I felt it in myself. In that moment, it gave strength. We realized that within this moment of tragedy, this moment of negation, that there is a way forward. And I think it gave a lot of the people there a sense of hope, and it created maybe a small light at a dark time, something that we all needed at that moment.
When I was approached by Rick Falco about doing an exhibit in the gallery for the 20th anniversary for 9/11, we took pause. We knew what it would take, but we really felt that this community here really needed to be educated. So we brought it to the committee, and we voted that it's almost like we have a responsibility to do this exhibit and to try to educate our community here about what happened. And that's exactly what we did. We designed it in a way that we would communicate in a couple mediums, video, augmented reality, posters, and of course with Rick Falco's book that was published. And we took every single page and we mounted it on Blackboard so you could come into the exhibit and actually read Rick Falco's book. The use of photography is so poignant to getting emotion, to getting close-ups, to getting broad views. The capability of photography as a medium really connects to humanity, can get really close to the emotion and really tell the narrative. So that's what was very important in terms of making the decision to do this. We spent the whole summer before the fall preparing for it, actually probably about a year, with meetings twice a month. And then really in the summer, we started the production in it, and then was ready for the opening mid-September.
The arts for communicating ideas about events like this are incredibly important, because you can watch CNN or Fox or whatever you want to, and they're going to essentially try and give you the facts from their point of view. Design, in particular, makes visible the invisible. Things in the world that we cannot see can be brought out and understood through the arts. The other important thing was to get students to understand what we felt. This was 20 years ago. Many of them were just born, some not born. They know it from history books, they know it from TV shows. So what they don't know is what we felt. The terror, the confusion, the loss, the misery, those were all things I wanted to get across. I didn't want to tell the story of 9/11. In fact, I don't like telling the story of 9/11. I like telling the story of September 11th. I think it's a more dignified thing, and that was very, very important to me. The room taught me that I could take these names, and these names are going to disappear into history. There's no way they're not going to. But the events won't. And to somehow make that invisible concept visible, of the names disappearing but the events coming out strong. Choice in the photographs, they start off with the event, obviously with the event at the explosion. And then I worked my way out using Rick's photographs so that it was a fireman trying to make a rescue. It was a construction worker trying to pull up debris, etc. And as it went further along, the pictures begin to become more of the rescue workers, the first responders. You can just see their whole attitude, their body language changing. It's like, this is going to be a long, tough haul. This is going to be horrible. And then once they come to that realization, and then we come to the realization that nobody else is coming out, so we're about 2/3 of the way down the wall. And that's actually punctuated by the tombstone, which I think it says an awful lot, that one image. As you reach the very ends, we get towards grief, and you see pictures of people in grief, looking at the walls for their lost ones, looking at the pictures. There's that picture of the man praying in St. John's. So we go from impact to struggle to surrender to grief. And then the last two shots, at the very ends of the walls, one picture at the far end are the beam projectors. And then at the other end are the pools at night. I didn't want to leave them just as images. I really wanted to make people think a certain way. The videos were not there to give a recollection of those 50 minutes, whatever, when everything fell apart. It's both a visual and an audio cacophony. And I thought that was so important for someone who didn't experience this. There's no way, there's absolutely no way someone who didn't experience could ever understand completely. But to be assaulted by all these images and then trying to make sense out of them, that was the morning. It just kept changing and changing, and we couldn't keep up with it.
This just in, you were looking at
we have a breaking
obviously
news
very
story to tell you
disturbing
about.
live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed.
As we come on now, we have serious news of a major, very tragic event for you right now.
Poetry is very, very important to me as a designer. Poetry takes everyday speech and allows us to feel things that are far deeper than ordinary speech. And so the Whitman piece, I think, does a wonderful job of giving you the feeling that you don't normally feel of loss. How do you put loss into words? And Walt Whitman does that. He's taken this huge event and he's pushed it down into just these basically 4 stanzas, 2 panels. And it allows us, it's so concise, it's so potent that we can understand now, hopefully a little better, the loss other people suffered and what other people felt during that loss. The Mercies are the same sort of thing. They tell us how we can get through this if you read them and read them all. We decided to incorporate the augmented reality because I believe that the pieces, especially the one with the tombstones, our mainstay poster, our students know the World Trade Center as this pile of rubble. It was a magnificent building. It was a magnificent achievement. There were so many wonderful things about it. And I wanted to do basically a promotional piece for what used to be there. So they'll understand not just that a building was gone, but this incredible icon of American culture was completely destroyed with people inside it.
This event was more than just a work assignment for me. I think as a New Yorker, it was very personal. I had a need to document what was going on. I've always felt that photography is the first draft of history. It is the place where things begin, understanding and questions start to evolve, and we become history. My desire for actually having the exhibition and the luxury of working with both Mary and John was that I wanted this generation who was not born or so young that they had no understanding of what was going on. And I wanted it presented in a way that they could feel the moment as well as just see it. And I think the design that we created took a step towards those goals, and I'm very pleased with how it evolved. My hope is that the next generations who look back at these photographs, at the media that was presented, the content, get a better understanding of where they came from as they think about where they are and hopefully where they're going to go.